Subscribe to the Prepper Historian right now if you value hard evidence, uncomfortable truths, and survival knowledge that still matters today. What you're about to hear isn't romantic Viking fantasy. It's a documented historical problem modern science still struggles to fully explain. Medieval Scandinavians lived knee-deep in filth by modern standards. Smoke-filled halls, animal waste, unwashed clothing, salted meat, stagnant water, parasites, and brutal winters. Yet skeletal evidence, settlement archaeology, and saga references consistently show something unexpected. Vikings were often healthier, taller, stronger, and longer-lived than many of their European contemporaries. Stay with me for the next minute, because this overturns everything we assume about hygiene, disease, and resilience. Here's the hook most people miss. Vikings did not survive because they were lucky or genetically superior. They survived because their daily systems accidentally optimized immunity, nutrition, and disease resistance in ways modern life actively undermines. What follows is not speculation. It is drawn from osteological studies, paleopathology, soil analysis, tool residues, and settlement waste patterns. If you're a serious historian or survivalist, this knowledge is usable. So, why did constant exposure to dirt actually make Viking immune systems stronger? Well, Vikings lived in what you might call microbial chaos. Their longhouses trapped smoke, moisture, and plenty of organic waste. During the harsh winters, animals would often share the same living space as people. Archaeologists have even found parasite eggs in latrine pits all across Scandinavia. Yet, interestingly, widespread signs of chronic infection are surprisingly rare when we look at Viking remains. One leading explanation is something called immune training. Basically, early and constant exposure helped their bodies build resilience. Modern hygiene theory, actually shows that immune systems develop real strength through regular microbial contact, especially during childhood. Viking children, for instance, crawled on dirt floors, handled livestock, drank unfiltered water, and ate fermented foods every single day. Their immune systems had no choice but to adapt quickly, or, fail. You can apply this Viking wisdom today by understanding that sterility isn't the same as resilience. Getting outside, having contact with soil, eating fermented foods, and reducing over-sanitization, all of these encourage your immune system to become more competent. Now, this doesn't mean you should abandon hygiene altogether. It just means avoiding the modern mistake of erasing all forms of microbial interaction. Now, you might not realize it, but smoke-filled homes actually acted as primitive disease control systems. Longhouse smoke wasn't just unpleasant, It functioned as a constant antimicrobial environment. Wood smoke contains phenols and formaldehyde-like compounds that inhibit bacteria, fungi, and insects. Studies of traditional smokehouses, interestingly enough, show reduced pathogen survival on surfaces and food. Vikings lived in that environment year-round, believe it or not. Smoke also repelled flies and parasites, which reduced disease vectors. In survival terms, controlled smoke exposure really does matter. Smoking food, maintaining a wood-fire living space and understanding airflow can reduce spoilage and insect pressure without any chemicals. Vikings did not ventilate well because, quite simply, warmth mattered more than comfort, and the side effect was microbial suppression. So, why did Viking diets quietly prevent deficiency and disease? Well, despite their limited agriculture, Viking nutrition was actually quite dense. Fish, organ meats, bone broth, seaweed, fermented dairy, and whole grains really dominated their intake. And, interestingly enough, skeletal remains show low rates of rickets and scurvy compared to later medieval populations. Fermentation preserved nutrients and, improved gut health. Fish provided omega-3s and vitamin D, which was especially critical in those northern latitudes. Bone marrow and broth supplied minerals that, honestly, modern diets just tend to lack. This is directly applicable, even now. Prioritize nutrient density over just counting calories. Eat nose to tail when possible. Use fermentation not as some trendy thing, but as a genuine preservation and digestion technology. Sauerkraut, kefir, and fermented grains really do mirror that classic Viking food logic. Constant physical labour actually prevented metabolic disease long before anyone had a name for it. Vikings, for instance, didn't really exercise in the way we think of it today. They worked rowing, farming, herding, crafting and building. All of these activities demanded daily full-body exertion. And, this kind of lifestyle kept their insulin sensitivity high and inflammation remarkably low. Skeletal evidence, interestingly enough, shows strong musculature attachment points and, honestly, fewer signs of degenerative disease than you might expect. For modern survivalists, it's worth noting that functional movement actually matters more than any gym routine. Carrying loads, chopping wood, rowing, digging and building, these kinds of movements do a much better job regulating metabolism and joint health than isolated exercise ever could. So, cold exposure really hardened Viking physiology. The cold was just unavoidable for them. Their clothing, it was layered wool rather than the insulated synthetics we have now. Interestingly, cold exposure stimulates brown fat activation, improves circulation, and strengthens our stress response systems. The Vikings adapted physiologically simply because, honestly, they had no choice. These days, cold training is controlled but still effective. Things like cold showers, spending time outdoors, and, avoiding constant thermal comfort can really help build resilience without being reckless about it. Viking sanitation, at first glance, might have looked filthy, but actually it functioned quite intelligently. Viking settlements separated waste areas, used flowing water when it was available, and recycled organic waste back into their fields. Latrine pits, for example, show pretty deliberate placement away from wells. This wasn't ignorance, It was actually ecological sanitation practiced without any knowledge of germ theory. When it comes to preparedness, waste management really matters. Things like distance, drainage and composting actually reduce disease far more than just relying on chemical disinfectants alone. Here's something scientists still can't fully explain. Even after accounting for factors like immunity, diet, smoke and labour, Viking health outcomes remain well, unusually strong. Some researchers suggest it might be due to gut microbiome diversity that we've now lost. Others point to epigenetic adaptation, shaped by generations of hardship. The truth is likely cumulative. Systems reinforcing systems. Why this knowledge still matters. You see, modern life removes stress, exposure and nutrient density while adding comfort and isolation. Vikings lived harshly but, well, coherently. Their environment matched their biology. If you take one thing from this, it's this. Health is not cleanliness, comfort or convenience. It's adaptation. If this kind of deep, evidence-based history matters to you, subscribe to The Prepper Historian, share this with someone who still believes modern equals superior, and, stay prepared by learning from the past instead of dismissing it.